Good morning, everybody. It's 9 a.m. We're starting super early today, so we're glad you can be with us. We're just going to let people kind of come on into the session and really just want to give you our gratitude for being here this morning. This is a very niche kind of presentation that we're giving, so we're really talking to the report doers or who's going to learn how to do these reports, and we're just really glad you're here. All right, letting people come on in. Thank you. Welcome. Excellent. Okay, it looks like we've gotten majority of our friends in here now. I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation, and we'll get walking through here. And let's see here. All right. So, in case you did not know, you are improving your unit record experience from interim report to URR. So, welcome. We're glad you're here. We're ready to learn this morning. Hopefully, you have your coffee and you're just getting settled in and ready to go. I'd like to introduce myself and my colleague, Ann Boyle. So, Ann, you want to introduce yourself real quick before you hop off screen for a little bit?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ann Voiles, and most of you have worked with me in the unit record. If you're new, welcome. We will be doing a more thorough presentation on the unit record through our training webinars. There are 3 of them scheduled. We'll go into that a little bit later in this presentation. But I want to thank you and looking forward to working with you this year.
Thanks, Ann. And I am Carly Curley. I use pronouns she, her. I'm the assistant director for need-based programs, and I work a lot with the interim report. So we wanted to go ahead and kind of provide you a pathway from interim to URR and kind of seeing how you can be the most successful in your unit record report. And Ann is our expert, so we're so glad you're here. And Ann, we'll see you here in a little bit.
All right, thank you.
Okay, just a couple housekeeping things about what we're going to do this morning. So we're going to be using the Q&A feature for all questions. It should be in your menu that is below the Zoom screen. So feel free to put any questions that you have for us in that screen in the Q&A feature. We'll make sure to kind of stop between the interim and the URR report and make sure that we're going to be able to address those questions for you. And as well, we have reactions available. If you're pumped on the interim or the unit record report, or we may ask you, hey, do you know this? You can put a thumbs up or a heart or whatever feelings you have, this early in the morning. Yay, love to see it. Thanks for the hearts. So that's what we'll be utilizing as far as our Zoom functions. A little bit about what we're going to be covering today. So we have some goals for this session. We came into the session just making sure that we want to cover some things and we want to empower you in some of your reporting. We're going to be talking about interim reporting. So some of this might be old news for some of you. Some of you might be brand new to the process. So we're going to walk through that with you. We're going to talk a little bit about the differences between the 2 reports. So do they use the same information? What is the difference between the 2, and what do I need to know about that to be successful? We're going to dive into the unit record report. Anne's going to do a deep dive for you into that unit record report and some great tips for you. And then, of course, Q&A. Like I said, we'll have some stopping points between interim and URR where we can take some questions, and then we'll have plenty of time at the end to take some questions as well. This is just an advertisement for our upcoming trainings. We are going to be definitely have more trainings available to you, and there's still some available. Even today, you can still sign up. So we have the WASA application today, and then next week we have a bunch of different sessions available to you. We'd love to see you at more sessions. And thank you for all of you who have been attending all week long. We're so glad you're here. We're going to do a quick little poll here in Zoom. Let me go ahead and pull this out here. If I can, there we go. Okay, I'm going to launch a poll. This is just to give us an idea of who's here and what kind of reports have people been doing. If you all can see the poll, maybe give me a react with a thumbs up. Oh, I can see you are, because I can see you in there. So we'd love to see, are you doing the unit record? Are you doing the interim? Are you a report wizard? If you are, congratulations on your wizarding abilities. And also, if you're just here, you're excited to learn, we're really, really excited to have you. So I'll give you a couple minutes to kind of put your poll in there and see what's going on. All right, excellent. Thank you all. Looks like we have some serious report wizards in here. Thank you for being here. We also have a lot of new folks, so thank you so much for wanting to explore this, and some people that are just doing one or the other. So I think this will be beneficial for you, especially since we're in final interim uh, reporting period right now, and also we'll be transitioning to URR here shortly. So thanks for being here, and I'll share those results with everyone. So here's where you can kind of see a mixture of friends that are here in the audience today. Okay, great. So we're going to get moving into our goals for today. So here's what we want to see happen by the end of this presentation. We want to understand both processes. So how does the interim work? How does the URR work? And how do they interconnect with each other? Understanding how each reporting process differs. So that's important too, because we see how they connect, but also how they differ. And so what that will mean for your process and your steps. Tips on how to be successful with your report. So we want to help you with that. And the importance of final reconciliation during the final interim reporting period. So first of all, let's just talk about what is the interim report. So for those that are new folks in here, it's a quarterly data submission and includes student details for every eligible student at your institution that are awarded the Washington College Grant, College Bound, and Passport to College. And then for this year still, we're of course reporting Bridge Grant information too, but will not be moving forward. There are 4 interim reports that you submit each year. So there's a fall, winter, spring, and then a final interim. We're in the final interim period right now, so that kind of generally begins in the middle of June and goes through the middle of July. So why is it important to do the interim report? It can just feel like you're putting a lot of data, a lot of time, a lot of effort into doing this reporting. And why is it important? And it really is important because we're providing data for funding projections. So this is essential when we make sure that we're getting allocated the correct number of funds for our students, making sure that we are reporting that back, and we have to have that accurate reporting to be able to do so. So it's a huge lift for everyone, and we want to make sure that you know this is super important as we serve our students at our institutions and also apprentices as well. So what is reported during interim reporting? So there's going to be student-specific information. If you're not familiar with the layout, the file layout, we definitely have those available, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when I talk through process. But there's going to be student-specific information, so SSN, ID, maybe ITIN for a student. There's an ICER transaction number from their application. So whether they filed a WASFA or FAFSA, you're going to tie what your award is for the student to a specific transaction number. And so this is unless the student is WCGC. So if you joined us yesterday, you learned that this is Washington College Grant Connect. And these students do not require a financial aid application, but our system can recognize them. So you don't have to worry about, I did not report a transaction number, it's going to give me an edit. The system's smart enough to know and identify our Washington College Grant Connect eligible students. And honestly, most of these students do have a financial aid application on file. So rarely it runs into an issue of not having a transaction number. But either way, it works for these folks too. You're gonna list the actual credit enrollment by term. So when you're uploading your file, you're gonna definitely put the number of credits that the student is enrolled in and what the award is based on. And then you're going to awards by type and term. So you're going to be putting in what they've received in Washington College Grant, Passport, College Bound, and for this academic year, Bridge, all the different awards that they're awarded, and those will be uploaded into our system called Seesaw. So how does the process work for interim? So there, it's kind of a linear process in terms of how you're going to work the interim report. And what this is just a moment too, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about this during the upload section. But you can upload a file into Seesaw at any time, so you can put new student information in there at any time. It doesn't have to just be during the interim reporting period. So just something to know. But generally, as a part of the interim reporting process, you are going to upload a file of your students. You're going to then work all the edits. This is what takes the most time as you're working the report. So you're going to need to resolve all the edits before you can actually submit your report. You're going to request some funds, any funds that you can as of that reporting period and prior. So, for example, if we are in the fall reporting period, you'd want to make sure if you're summer one school to request all summer one funds and fall funds and before you review your interim report. Then you're going to review your report, look at it, be like, wow, I did a great job. Look at my work. It looks awesome. And then you're going to submit it to us. So this is a moment we did send out some information about this, but if you didn't have a chance to look, and again, if you're not on our distribution list, just reach out to us at the WCG email, and we'll provide that at the end of this presentation to get you on the distribution list. We're adding people all the time. Sometimes we just didn't know that you'd be on the list, and that way you get all of our communications. But all that to say, when you go to upload your report for your final interim, it's going to look a little different this time. So we'll kind of walk through what that screen looks like and how it is used. So this particular screen is going to first have you select the academic year that you're going to submit or upload your report for. This is really important because as you are working between a couple different academic years, and maybe 2025 is open and you're a summer one school and you want to get your people in for summer one, you've submitted your PPA, all of the steps are complete, and you wanted to make sure that you are uploading those students. Well, you want to make sure you're selecting the right academic year. So if we're in final interim and you're working on final interim, you're going to select 24-25. And this is also a note that we are not going to have 25-26 open until July 1st. So that's something to be aware of as you're planning for your next steps for the next year. So you're going to select your academic year. It's going to move you into the select file screen. So you're going to select your CSV file. This is also a note that there's no more full file loads that are accepted in this process. So you will need to have the incremental file layout. And so that's essential as you're moving forward through this process. We want to thank all the schools for working really hard to get prepared to use the incremental file layout. And I will talk a little bit more about that here. But you can see the CSV templates right there. So if you didn't know what the layout looks like, the template is right there. It's also on our FAA resources page. Once you choose your file, hit continue to start moving through the process. If for some reason there's something wrong in your file, we will let you know. So there's going to be a fix errors next step, and you'll see that oh, there's these errors, and it will always tell you the row and column, or if it's not specific to a row and column, like this particular example, it'll just tell you what the issue is. And in this case, there was a specific code that was found multiple times. So what you need to do from here is you need to open your file, fix the errors, whatever there's happening, and you can click start over to go back to the first step. If there's no errors, you're going to go right on through and you're going to see this screen that's going to be the file contents. So this is something that's really, really interesting. You'll be able to look and see, okay, here's everything I'm reporting in this file for all our students. And you want to make sure that that's looking correct. Just spot check, kind of the amounts that you're going to have. And you'll want to make sure to take a peek and review it, make sure it looks correct. Another something I want to point out here, you can see right at the top in the bold font, it says 0 records marked for deletion. And so we're going to tell you, if you put a Y in that incremental file load, we're going to tell you how many our records are marked for deletion. So that's another good check for you. If you anticipated deleting, 10 students or so, you'd want to make sure that you see that they're marked for deletion in that part. So great, you've reviewed your file. Now you're going to click on confirm. As you click confirm, you'll see that there's a status bar that will appear. It'll tell you what it's doing and where it's at. Should be a fairly quick process to get it uploaded our system into Seesaw. And then once the file is uploaded, you're going to click on Review Edits to move to the Edit section. So the kind of new thing about this particular upload process is that in the old upload screen, you kind of saw all the tabs lined up and you could just click on the Edits tab. With this process now, you just click on Review Edits to go to the Edit screen. Another option too, when you, besides clicking on Review Edits, you can always access the Edits menu through the Seesaw menu. So the Seesaw menu is generally above on the top of the portal, and you can click Seesaw and go to Edits that way too. If something's wrong and you've reviewed the file contents, say in this other step here, you looked here and you're like, that's not right, that is not right. Always can click on the Start Over button. So don't worry, Start Over button is there for you. You can always upload another file too. But the important thing to remember is that it's not like the full file load where it's going to delete all previous data in Seesaw and 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 only and rewrite it for the incremental file. It's only going to change for incremental. It's only going to change the information that is included in the file itself, and it won't auto delete students that are omitted from the file. So those are the two important things to really note about that change. Okay, so you're ready to resolve the edits. Like I said, this is going to be the bulk of the work, and this is going to take a little bit of time to resolve these things. Good news is some of the edits are tied together. So once you complete one edit, sometimes that'll fix multiple edits. We love that. Also, some of these edits have multiple terms. So it's not as if you have 350, in this example, individual edits that you're having to review. Sometimes it could include, 3 different terms of the same student. So just as you're going through this, that's something to note. All the edits are going to be here. If you access the Edits tab, and again, that's just by clicking on Review Edits or going to the Seesaw menu and clicking on Edits. There's going to be a list of those that you have to review, and then those that are informational. So you have to review all the edits that are overridable or non-overridable in order to submit your report. For edits that are informational, we always recommend reviewing them, but they're not essential to review to be able to submit your report. And then you're going to click on the edit to review the students that are associated with that edit. This will bring you to a screen like this. So here's an example of the bridge students that must receive maximum WCG award. We always recommend, the names are going to populate in a non-organized fashion, I would say. And so we always recommend maybe sorting by last name. That way, if you have like 3 different terms of student, the same student, you can kind of take care of them at once. Just a hot tip as far as that goes. If you know the fix to the override, you can actually do it in this screen. So if, for example, they're supposed to have maximum, WCG in this case, and you know what that amount is, and you know that the student just needs to have the maximum amount, you can fix that. You can also, if you know what you need to override the student as, you can go ahead and put that in here as well. If for some reason you've overridden a student and we have not approved that override, when you click on the override button, you will actually see our message now that says, hey, this wasn't approved and here's the reason why, or we'll ask a question or something like that, just so it's a reminder when you go to override again what the issue is. So it's good to review the student detail information though, and we'll kind of go on how to do that. You basically click on the right-hand corner of the student's name to enter the student detail screen. So this is kind of a screenshot of what that looks like. So edits can be term specific or academic year specific. You can tell what kind they are if they're listed either by the term. So in this example, there's a fall term with a box, and that box has like a little triangle with an exclamation mark that indicates an edit, or they'll be up top near the academic year, and that means that it applies to the whole year, not just to a specific term. So you can click on those triangle icons to see what's going on. It's also where you'll see any comments if we have not approved an override and you have any questions about that. So if you need to resolve an edit by changing a student's award or editing their information, you can click on the box that has a little pencil by it. This is the edit icon, and you can move in to go to their specific information. This is also if you have a WASFA student where they have a new ID number. and you need to edit their ID number to match their application, this is also where you can do that as well. So it's where you can make all changes to information that you upload, essentially. So once you've resolved any of that information, you make your updates. Maybe it's award amounts. You click Update Student to kind of move forward with that. And if you refresh the page, you will notice that any edit associated with the issue will be gone. All right, that's edits. We could talk about those all day, but we have a lot of information to cover. So always here for you if you have questions about a given edit. Sometimes it's confusing why you're receiving one. So please just reach out. I'm happy to help with that. So your next step is going to be to request funds. So this is going to be really important, especially for final interim, as you need to select all funds that have been awarded to students that are reported in Seesaw to be able to submit your report. So you need to request everything. And easiest way to do that is to click on Choose All Students by Program when you go to the Request Funds tab, and then check the box that says All Terms and Programs. That'll select every single fund for every single term. And that works great for this reporting period. For other reporting periods, you can select by term, whatever works best for you. So as a part of that process, you're going to scroll down and you're going to have to click on I agree request funds. So that's really important. And you also note that there's some CSV download options there for you. So if it's helpful for your finance office, or if anybody needs a record in that way that exists out of the portal or Seesaw, you can download a list of those students that you requested funds for. And then once you do click on that button, confirmation of that request will appear, and a list of students in that request, like I said, can be downloaded. Before the last step is reviewing your report. So you do this by going to the interim report tab, and you want to look at a couple different things. So first, you're going to have a summary of what was reported and all the awards in Seesaw. If you look at the left-hand tab, there's also really great ways to kind of determine and spot check to make sure your information is correct. So you can look at total awards and payments, and there's going to be a comparison from year to year. This is actually something I look at when I'm reviewing your interim report as well. I look to see, hey, is the number of eligible students kind of comparable, or it makes sense if they've gone up? Is the amount of dollars that you've requested at this period of time comparable? So it's a really great way to check and make sure that everything looks accurate for you. And this is really especially important for final interim, since you are doing a final reconciliation at this time. And once your interim report looks good, you're going to click Submit the Interim Report. And if for some reason the button isn't there, it just means there's more edits for you to resolve. It'll be grayed out if it's not an option. Once you submit your report, you're going to get an email, and we also get an email. So once we know that you have submitted your report, we look at your overrides, review them. If there's any that we can't approve, we will contact you and let you know any changes needed. And then you will review those things, change the edits, and resubmit your report. So we'll always provide you some instruction. We'll reach out, and typically we reach out to the person who submits the report. So that's a good thing to know if you're wondering, like, who gets contacted in this case. Oh, I see that I totally forgot to complete this slide. So I'm just going to fill in the blanks here. I think I was working on it and then forgot last night. So I wanted to just make a special attention to interim reporting reconciliation. So we're really kind of driving this home, and this is really, really essential for our unit record reporting as well. And so what this means is that you have actually reconciled between not only Seesaw and your system, but Seesaw, your system, your business office, your finance office, every single person that has to do with the financial part of state financial aid is reconciled. And so the reason why this is so important is that this is when, and I'm so glad we're moving into the URR portion of this presentation, but this is when we start to see some big errors found in the unit record reporting time. It's when we are not reconciled between our systems that things start to pop up. And speaking of that, this is kind of a really critical piece to understanding why things might pop up for you in the unit record that you didn't even know about in interim reporting. So reconciliation is a huge piece of that, making sure all your systems are reconciled. But when we think about the data that is submitted between the two reports, here's something to really keep in mind as you're going throughout the year and you're doing your reporting. So the interim report is going to use a specific ISER transaction to check family income and MFI and compare it to the award reporting in Seesaw. So all of you who've done an interim report know that, okay, if this ISER transaction doesn't exist, for example, or if the number doesn't match, or if the award is different than what the MFI is showing, you know that there will be edits created. So it's really looking at a specific FAFSA or WASFA transaction or WCGC eligible student, and it's tying that to what you reported as their award, and it's cross-checking that data. What the interim doesn't look at is residency, cost of attendance, or need. And so that's going to be a very different process. And so there has to be a way throughout the year to make sure there's a checkpoint that you are checking these things for these students so that we don't have surprises in the unit record report. And so speaking of that, the unit record report is going to still use that same transaction number to check family income and MFI and compare those awards to Seesaw. So there's still that kind of similar process as a part of the unit record. And it will also look at rejected ISERs or WASFA status if the transaction is not correct. However, the unit record requires residency status, which can be something that really comes as a surprise for schools when they're doing their unit record. Need duration, cost of attendance. We're going to ask for SAI and need calculation. You're in school, ethnicity. So there's some different parts to that reporting process that don't come up during interim. And so you'll need to figure out a way to best check for those things throughout the year, because once we reach unit record time, we have a limited ability to do anything with funding. So if there's an error, you may find that you owe, thousands of dollars back to WASAC because these things weren't caught. Whereas in the interim reporting period, you still have the time to fix these things, to update Seesaw, to request funds. You have all of that availability in the interim reporting periods. So before I move on to Anne to talk about the unit record report, I think I'm going to check and see what we have. Let's see. Okay, so we have, maybe you'll address this, but I'm struggling to figure out the difference between request of funds versus interim. When we request final funds, it seems like we just submit the standard request of funds and then push the submit interim button. What is the difference? Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I see there's a conversation. So the request funds process is literally just asking for the funds for the students you've reported in Seesaw. So we ask you do that on a monthly basis at a minimum. And this is just the process of asking for the funds that you have reported, and that's it. Submitting the final interim is actually submitting your report. So, sorry, submitting interim is actually submitting your interim report. So that means that you've resolved all edits, you've requested funds as a part of that, and you've also been able to submit this interim report. So that gives us all the data in Seesaw, and it's kind of locked in as of that point. So you can request funds anytime, you can upload files anytime, but submitting the interim report only happens within the interim reporting period. So I hope that's helpful. Let's see. Can I delete the whole previous file that I upload? Yeah, that's a great question. There isn't a way to delete that file once you actually submit it and it's uploaded into Seesaw, but if for some reason it was completely wrong, you can let us know. With the incremental file load, you basically would need to submit a file and upload a file that actually has all the data that you want to have in Seesaw at that point. Okay, so hopefully, let me see. I think I have one more question. Okay, but the request the funds process is the same as the interim process, or am I missing? Oh, no, it's different. Requesting funds is just requesting funds. It is a part of the interim process, and actually we don't require you to request the funds for fall, winter, and fall and winter interim periods, but we ask that you do so as a part of the interim reporting process. So we kind of lay it out that it's just another step as a part of the process, but it is also its own unique thing. So let me know, reach out to WCG, this person, let us know if there's additional instructions I can provide to you. Happy to help. All right, I'm going to invite Anne on the screen and go ahead and start moving on with her portion of the presentation. Thanks, Anne.
Hi, thank you, Carly. While we're on this particular slide, I do want to emphasize the information about residency status. We do ask that you coordinate that with your admissions office. One of the errors that I did not put on this slide deck, and was going to do that this morning, but ran out of time, is the fact that we do occasionally run into a situation where the financial aid has identified a residency status internally. However, their admissions office has identified perhaps non-resident. And when you're reporting in the unit record, if that comes across as a non-resident, and they have been awarded state aid, that will then trigger a repayment to WASAC. And generally speaking, it's a small issue, maybe one or two people, but we have in the past had schools where it became a humongous issue and hundreds of thousands of dollars were returned at the end of the year because that was caught after the fact, after reconciliation and after fiscal year end. So that is very critical that you look into that and get that reconciled before you pull down your unit record report and report that to us. Okay. Would you, next slide, please? Okay. There are several differences between the unit record report and interim report, final interim report, as Carly mentioned. Major in this is that the unit record is a comprehensive student-specific data collection of not just state aid, but federal, state, private, and institutional aid that's distributed to all of our resident and non-resident need-based financial aid recipients. All of the schools who participate in the Washington College Grant Program are participants in our unit record data collection. The report also includes information about federal borrowing for non-need-based loan recipients. So even if you have a federal recipient that's only received non-need-based loans, those individuals also must be reported in the unit record. The other major difference is that the unit record data is collected once a year in August, which is after fiscal year end and after the reconciliation process has been completed. Next slide. Okay. The unit record report is important because it is analyzed to determine who benefits from the aid programs, not just in the state system, but how well we coordinate with the federal, institutional, and other aid sources in order to meet student need. So that is a pretty major thing that takes place every year in our research, and it's used to not only evaluate our state aid programs, but it supports our budget requests and it improves services to students. Next slide, please. Okay, we collect in the unit record student-specific information, and as mentioned earlier in Carly's slide, it not only includes the Social Security number and the institution's student ID, date of birth, gender, residency status, year in school, race, and ethnicity. It also collects the ICER WASFA numbers. In any case where there is a rejected ICER WASFA, or if the student did not file either a WASFA or an ICER, you must click that rejected ICER WASFA field and show yes as rejected. And that we'll talk about a little bit later. It does impact what types of aid that student is eligible to receive and how it, may reflect in our review of the unit record after you've submitted. In addition, we do collect cost of attendance, the SAI, Student Aid Index, need duration, and the need amount. We'll talk a little bit about that need formula a little bit later in this presentation. We also now are collecting the enrollment by term in the form of credits. As you may recall, it used to be under full-time, half-time, three-quarter time, less than half-time. And we have now moved to the enrollment intensity. So that is what you will enter in those enrollment term fields. The difference, I think, is that and correct me if I'm wrong, Carly, but I believe with Seesaw or with the interim report, you're only reporting the actual credits, either zero or the numbers with the 2 decimal points. The unit record will also require that you indicate the word credits. So if it's 0 credits or incrementally up to the 30.00 credits. So that is a slight difference than what you experience, I believe, in the interim report. Also, we are asking for information about each of the awards that student has received by type and by term. So not just state aid, but federal, institutional, and other aid as well. So thank you. The unit record report process is similar to the interim report process. There is an upload field that you select and add your files. Then you will be resolving your edits through an error screen. Once you have completed that process, there is a button that will pop up that allows you to review what we call our preliminary program totals report. We call it preliminary at this point because at this point it collects all of the data that you have, and it's a comparison of the last 4 years. The most critical are the current year and the year prior, where we'll show you what the differences are between the 2 years. And then once you have reviewed that and clicked, continue, it will take you to the submit process. And the submit process also actually includes a reprocessing of errors to be sure that all of them are caught. So we'll cover that a little bit more in a later slide as well. Next slide, please. Okay, this here is what you'll encounter as the initial screen when you enter the unit record. You'll see that it has a navigation bar at the top. It's similar to what you saw in the interim report process. It kind of tends to lead you through step by step each of the processes. The interesting thing is that you aren't able to go forward without completing all of the requirements for that particular screen. But once you've moved beyond that screen, you are able to move back. So if you've started working in your errors screen, you can go back to this upload screen if you need to. Here you notice that you will browse and select your upload file. It does need to be in a CSV format. Once you've browsed and selected that, you click upload. You also notice that there is an option to create the record manually. we suggest that you initially upload a file, because if you choose to create these records one by one manually right from the beginning, what you'll notice is that it will throw in a lot of records that show as errors because you have not entered in the information for that record. And without the award information, it will also trigger a lot of errors. So we recommend first you start with that upload file and send that into the system. Next, thank you. Here, if you have uploaded your file and there are what we call critical errors, it will not allow that file to upload. And what you'll receive is a list, as shown in that pink box, which will tell you what type of errors there are and what row of your file those errors are found. So once you see that, you can download it. There is an option to download those errors into an Excel spreadsheet, identify what needs to be fixed in your main file, make those corrections, save it, and then click the try again, which will take you back to that original screen where you can select and add that new file that's corrected. If you have bypassed any of those critical errors, you will see a successfully uploaded message at the top. And that means that you are able to click the blue continue button that shows at the bottom of the screen. That will move you forward. Next slide. And this here is the errors screen. So anything that has triggered an error will be dropped into this record, and you'll notice that it has moved forward in that navigation bar to the error button. And in order to sort your error list, you can do it in a number of different ways. Any of the column headers can be sorted, or you can choose by the status of that error or the error type. So depending on how you like to work through your errors, it doesn't have that convenient pre-sort that the interim report has, but this way you can make your corrections student by student because they will be clustered together by that student name and social number, or you can choose to do it by the error type. Okay, let's try the next screen. All right. Let me see. I think I forgot to mention, in order to get to the actual student record, Carly, could you go back one screen just real quickly? You see that the highlighted blue Social Security number, that is where you would click in order to move forward to that student record in the unit record. Okay, so go ahead and move forward. Okay, and here is a copy of a sample error screen, and all of that student record errors will be listed right there. And you'll notice that under that override column, all of them have a red override, which means that they have not yet been addressed. You can enter your override error comments here if you believe that there is a viable reason for that record to remain as it is. And you would do that by clicking the various boxes next to the actual error. And then that will activate that field for the override comment. And then you would click the blue. We do, however, recommend that you review that student record before you do that. So if we could go to the next slide. What you see here is what we call the On File tab, and it is a comparison of what is shown in the WASAC records in the portal. For the most part, the programs that are listed at the top are those that you report in the Seesaw and Interim report. You'll notice also there are other programs that belong to the teacher programs, or perhaps National Guard grant or WAVE. Those comparisons will also show up there if we have a student record with awards for that student in that program data column. Now, what you see in the unit record column is what you have reported in the other two tabs, the details and the terms tabs of this same student. The final column, you notice, is either a green check mark, which means that the data matches between those two sources, the program data and unit record, or it is a red X, which tells you that there is a difference between what you have reported in your unit record and in the actual portal records themselves. Next slide, please. Okay, here we're moving back to the other portion of that student record. This is a copy of the details screen, and you'll notice that we have made some changes here. We're no longer collecting the family income or the family size, number in college, dependency status. So that area is blank. But if there are any changes that need to be made here, you would make those corrections and then make sure you click the Save button. Here also, I want to point out, we have the transaction number on that right-hand column. It's at the very top. And then just below that is that rejected. Yeah, it just says rejected. I was thinking maybe it might say rejected ICE or WASPA, but and if it says no, that is an indicator that that is a valid ICER or WASPA record, and that the information that you see on that on file tab is directly related to the information that you have reported in that transaction number. All of this will relate back to the Seesaw record and the components that went into making that award. So it is very important to show the appropriate number there. If it is either an invalid ICER, a rejected ICER, or no ICER filed at all, you would change that rejected field to yes. And it does make a difference in what is reportable. If that is a yes in rejected, these need components are all left blank. They are not shown as zeros, they are just left blank in order to avoid edits in that area. Okay, go ahead and click the next slide. Here we see the terms tab, and this is where you would report all of the aid that that student received. And you notice in this particular example, under the credits for summer one, it shows 12.00 credits, and then the other terms, 0 credits. Those are going to default to 0 credits unless you indicate that it is something other than 0, that student was enrolled. So when you're completing this screen, if you only see certain fields and you need to make a correction in a program that you don't see, there is a box there that says show all. If you click that, that will drop down all the other programs, and then you'll be able to make those additions or subtractions as needed. if you click the lock button, that will lock the view, not just for this record, but for the other unit records, so that you don't see the full list of reportable programs. Once again, be sure that you click Save before you move forward. Okay. All right. And here I talked a little bit about this. If you want to enter an override comment instead of make a correction, click on that little box next to the actual error row, and that will activate this override comment field where you can enter your override and click the blue override button. Now, if sometimes there's more than one error that might have the same response. Say in this case, it says that the college-bound scholarship is not found in Seesaw, but there's also one that says college-bound scholarship uh, doesn't match Seesaw, and then it will show Seesaw 0 or whatever Seesaw has compared to what you've entered in the unit record. In that case, you might want to put the same message in both, and you can click both of those boxes and then enter the same override comment and click override, and it will apply to both. Okay. Next. Now, when you believe that you have addressed all of the errors, you will notice that they will all either say overwritten or resolved. Before you move forward, I ask that you click on that revalidate button that's right next to the blue, I believe it says continue to review. Click on that revalidate. What we will do is it will reprocess all of your errors and then take a second look at that override column and make sure that there aren't any new errors that populated. Sometimes when you make a correction in the student record, it will generate an error right away in that record and you'll see it. Occasionally that will not occur, but pressing that revalidate button will allow you to address that before you move forward. Once you're sure that you have addressed all of the errors and everything shows as either overwritten or resolved, click on the continue to review button, which will take you to the program totals page. Go ahead and move forward. Thank you. And this is the preliminary program totals report. It is a comparison not only of the information by program that you have provided to us in the current unit record, but it is also a comparison with the last 3 prior years. The final 2 columns here, the award and the amount percentages, that reflects the changes between the last 2 years. So if you have any questions about any of that information, you might want to go back and review your data before you move forward to submit. But generally speaking, you may have an understanding of what kinds of issues there were. If you understand what might have occurred, there is at the top an add a note button. If you click there, you can provide for us an explanation of what you see there, so that whenever we're reviewing this unit record report, that information is already available to us and we may not come back to request more information from you. we ask that you download a copy of this PDF so that you have it in your file as a comparison, because it is a preliminary report at this point. At the end, when we finalize all unit records, we do delete certain extraneous non-need-based information, not the federal loan information, but for other individuals who have not received $1 of any need-based type of aid. And so there may be differences. So we ask that you keep a copy of this at this point, but also keep a copy of the final one that is available at the very end in January. Once you're sure this is correct, click on the confirm report. Go to the next slide.
And just wanted to pop on there, let you know we have about 5 minutes remaining, so we might need to move
Okay,
through
well,
some of these.
okay, I'm hoping I can get through them all. Okay, so the next slide, please. Okay, here it gives you one last opportunity. Tell it if you're correct to confirm to submit, and that will take you to the submit page. All right, now before you can submit, you are required to go back into looking at the WCG, CBS, and passport differences report. This also currently this year has the differences report for Bridge also, but you will need to, excuse me, look into these before you can move forward. Next slide, please. Here's an example of that differences report. This particular one you can see is for the WCG. It's a dropdown. And here is where you will see, again, what is different within WASAC records and what you have reported in the unit record. This is often where you will see where if there hasn't been a reconciliation by individual when you are finalizing your final interim, that the discrepancies will show up here. If it says yes, it means that you've already provided us with an override. If it says no, that means you will want to go back to that record and take a good look at it. Once you've gone through all four, go ahead and click return to the report summary. Okay, thank you. At that point, you would click I've reviewed the reports. And once you do that, it will reprocess. So click the submit button. It'll go through that reprocess to identify if there are any other errors that may still exist. But next slide. It will ask you to confirm if it is successfully submitted. You'll receive that confirmation information right there at the top. If there is another error that may have been identified, instead of the successfully submitted, you will see a red notice to go back and address the errors that you will find in the errors tab. Okay. So let's move forward. Most common errors. Here, between the payment records and Seesaw or other portal programs and institutional reporting, the reconciliation can't be emphasized enough. This is the same kind of information that you found in those discrepancy reports, but these are within the individual student records. And these are different types of errors. One shows an error where you've over-reported more than what the portal records show. The other is where you have under-reported. Where you have under-reported, quite often that will indicate that funds are due back to us. So very, very important that you do that individual reconciliation. when you're going through that final interim and reconciliation process before the fiscal year end. Next slide.
Thanks, Ann. I think real quick, since I know it's 9:59, recognize that we're going to be going over time here. So thank you to all who can still stick with us, but I wanted to just answer a couple questions. I indicated that I would answer live before if people have to leave. If not, thank you so much. We are recording this. We will post it to the website along with a copy of the presentation. So don't worry if you do have to go. There's going to be a chance for you to catch up. And again, thank you to those that can stay with us as we finish up here. So we did have a question about, is there a way to grab the transaction number we entered into Seesaw through a downloadable report? And there is. It's the all award report in Seesaw. And you can click, that's actually a great tool for reconciliation too. The all awards report will download either in the full file format or the incremental file format, and it gives you all the information that's been reported in Seesaw. So that includes the transaction numbers. For students that have more than 30 credits, will we always have to adjust those manually? Yes, right now the maximum award or maximum a number of credits is 30 credits for interim. Is that true for URR as well? And is that the maximum number they can report?
It is. It
Okay.
is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it is right now. Yes, it will still be manual. Is the program data the same as our final interim report as it is on URR? So the program data is going to be different because we're only asking you for WCG, passport to college, college bound, and bridge for this year, whereas the unit record is asking for state, institutional, federal. And when Ann kind of showed that screen, and Ann, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it includes all of our state programs, which are like teachers programs and WAVE and those types of programs, right?
Right. And then the unit record also includes all of the other, federal and institutional, some other private programs as well.
Great.
So
Okay. Thank you so much for clarifying that and asking that question. And the last one we had on here is you were talking about a space where they indicate their ICER. Where do they mark no for the ICER for WCGC students who don't have an ICER on file?
it is in that rejected field.
Great.
Yeah, there is only the one rejected field. So if there is no ICER or WASPA, that is where you would indicate yes for rejected because there is nothing. Okay.
Great.
I also wanted to mention, I think Shayna was asking about that ICER transaction number.
Mm-hmm.
And I did want to clarify, we do ask that the ICER transaction number that's reported there or the WASPA number
Mm-hmm.
is the one that the student is actually awarded from and not the first or the last. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does
Great
make a
point.
difference.
And then just real quick, because we got one more question, we can do the rest at the end of this presentation. Where does the program data come from? So that
Okay,
depends
you're
on
talking
your
about the
big
program
structure.
totals report? The program
I
totals report?
I think so. This person didn't say
Okay.
specifically.
If you're
Yeah.
talking about the program totals report, it is the data that you have reported in the unit record itself, either this year, which is the current unit record, or in the preceding 3 years. So it is just carried forward and it is shown as a display comparing actually the 4 years, the current year plus the three before.
Great. All right, let's rock and roll. Thank you for all who are still
Oh,
here.
okay. I
Oh,
see that
yeah.
he's asking about the program data. The program data field is what's in WASAC records. If you're talking about programs that are within the Seesaw record, those are Seesaw records. If you're talking about teacher programs, that would be what's in the portal for the portal programs for those particular programs themselves. Same thing for WAVE, National Guard grant. Those are portal programs at WASAC, and the unit record links to those so that you can see what the differences are between what you report and what is shown in our own records here. When I say Seesaw records, it is what is in existence in the Seesaw records at the time that we are reviewing the unit record. Well, from what you report compared to what we see in Seesaw at the time that we are reviewing the unit record. So if you have, corrected all of those through your reconciliation process, then what is in Seesaw should match what you have in your records.
Yeah, exactly. So basically what you've reported and submitted as your final interim is the Seesaw record that Anne is referring to. So that, again, just a reminder why that's so important to be reconciled. We're going to keep moving forward. I see we have some more questions. We will answer them at the end. But yeah, we'll keep going. Thanks, Anne.
Okay, let's move to most common errors found, number 2. The second most common error is the mismatch in the Social Security number or WASFA IDs. These are sometimes mismatches, which means that either perhaps something has been typed in wrong, or it could be that there are duplicate records, either in the unit record or in Seesaw with different identifiers. And we would hope that all of those are identified well before the unit record is submitted. But quite often we notice these as errors that show up on our reviewer side, and they should show on your side as well. Because if you're seeing on your errors list 2 students that have the same name and a different social number or a WASFA number, that's an indicator that perhaps you're reporting that student under 2 different identifiers. Or if it shows you that the student has not received aid that you're expecting to see, take a good look at that Social Security number, because it could be that you may have misidentified that student with a typo. There are 2 different ways to resolve errors in Social Security numbers. If it actually originates in the unit record, you would go to the details tab of that student record and make the correction directly in the SSN field. Remember always to click save in order to ensure that that record is saved in its corrected version. If that error originates outside of the unit record, either in Seesaw or perhaps there may have been, and this would be a Seesaw error, I guess, if you may have started reporting that student under an old WASFA number, and then there has been an update and another record was created and that student was paid twice, once under the old number and once under the new record, that will require WASAC assistance. Click on the send an email button that's on any screen that's in the unit record and securely notify us that we need to initiate that correction for you. If indeed you have paid the student under 2 separate records in Seesaw, under different social numbers or WASFA IDs, that generally means that you're going to have to owe a repayment for that. But that's why we're hopeful that you would take a very close look at that earlier in those individual recons during that final interim or during that recon before the fiscal year end. Because once it hits us here on this end, if there's a repayment, there is nothing we can do to retroactively pay that student. Okay, next slide. Once again, this is if you have an inaccurate ISA or WASFA transaction number, or if you fail to report yes in that is rejected field for an invalid or rejected ISA or WASFA, we do see that, and it does trigger errors in the unit record, especially if it causes a mismatch to Seesaw data, or it pulls in an incorrect SAI, because we do have the ability, although we're not collecting that information, we have the ability to review that based on the transaction number that you provide to us. So we do ask that you be sure that it is the ICER or WASFA number that you actually awarded from, and that you are reporting awards off of, so that we reduce those types of errors. As I mentioned, anybody with a rejected or without any type of a ICER or WASFA are not eligible for need-based aid. In that case, leave those 4 fields that I've noted there blank, and we should see no need-based awards in that terms tab. Okay, next. Here is our need formula, and a reminder that all aid counts towards need if the student received $1 of need-based aid. There are limited exceptions. I think it's OFA is now what they call it instead of EFA, that may count towards replacing the value of the student aid index. And those are things like the direct unsubsidized and plus loans. There are a limited number beyond that, very, very limited. Non-need-based gift aid or institutional aid does not replace SAI. So that's something you need to be aware of. So generally speaking, cost of attendance minus the student aid index equals that need amount. The negative SAIs are reported in the unit record as negative integers. I want to mention cautionary note that it may be reported as a negative. In the formula, it is viewed as a 0. Okay, and negative need amounts are to be reported on the unit record as 0. Next slide, please. Okay. Another common error is the enrollment status and credits. When a student has fully earned and received state aid for a term in which the student has met the requirement to attend all classes for at least 1 day before stopping out or withdrawing, and continue to receive the funds that they were awarded, report that enrollment at the credit level for which the student was originally enrolled. These instances should not be reported as 0 credits. Okay. Just want to be real clear about that. There are cases where certain aid may have been received where a 0 credits is appropriate. And in that case, I'm thinking of like state work study that's received for a summer term. They are not enrolled, but you are reporting that aid in, say, a summer term. That can be reported as 0 credits because they are not enrolled. But there is an exception built into the unit record in order to bypass that. So for those that it's acceptable to report a 0 credit, you will not trigger an error. But for the most part, all aid that's reported there with a 0 credits is going to trigger some type of an error for that award. Thank you. I did want to mention before we get too far into this, I want to reiterate again the residency. Please, please, please check your residency with your admissions office, because every year we have a few where a student has received aid. They're shown as non-resident but have received state aid, and that is not allowable. The issue is if there's not good communication between financial aid office from the admissions office, and there are a large number of those. We hope that that is checked well before the unit record or final interim is performed, so that that can be caught and rectified before it gets to the point where we're requiring a return of funds. That can sometimes be quite a large amount, and we would hope that that can be caught and rectified during that reconciliation process, so that those funds are reallocated or sent back in a different way, not a repayment. In this particular slide, I want to just point out, for the 24-25 award year, federal guidance no longer permits proration of the SAI for enrollment periods other than the 9 months. The use of the non-prorated SAI may mean less eligibility for students enrolled for less than 9 months. And that could make an otherwise eligible student suddenly ineligible for state financial aid. Here, I want to point everyone back to thoroughly review the guidance that WASAC has sent out. It is dated July 15th, 2024. It was a WCG email. A copy of that official guidance regarding that proration is included in our WASAC website. It's under the FAA resources page under program guidance, and there is the address where you will find it. You may have to go down the list of guidance memos there, but it is there. We do ask that you look at that very carefully, because it does make a big difference in perhaps how you're reporting that in the unit record. Please go to the next slide. I want to mention also, proration applies only if the student enrolls for other than the 9 full months. In the event that a proration results in an overaward, other aid must be reduced if there is at least $1 of need-based aid awarded. Okay. We ask that those overawards be identified and resolved before completion of the final interim, and that's a process that you're in right now, or the unit record submission. Once we get to unit record, all those fiscal year records are closed, and it definitely requires a repayment if we're in that situation. As mentioned in that July 15th email, WASAC does permit professional judgment decisions using institutional methodology when awarding state aid. Federal methodology must be used to report in the unit record, and that means an unreduced SAI. However, if you have chosen to use the recalculated SAI using institutional methodology, that information must all be included in that override comment when it's used to award state aid. Let me think here. Yeah. So just keep that in mind. Just a quick run through of the changes that we've notified you of in the current 24-25 unit record. We've removed several fields out of the unit record because they're considered federal tax information and we cannot share those back and forth. So that includes that marital status is dependent, family size, number in college, and family income. The error messaging that's associated with those fields no longer applies, and we have removed those from the unit record. I am in the process of updating the manual, and I hope to have that out to you fairly soon, so that you can see that actually in print. There's one other change in terms of a field header. The expected family contribution is now listed as student aid index. So when you're putting together that header file, take a close look at that. That is available on the WASAC website under the unit record page. Next slide, please. Okay, as I mentioned, negative SAI is to be reported in the unit record as a negative integer. Its effect, however, in that need formula is 0. So in other words, the impact of it would be to not reduce the need amount from that cost of attendance if it's a negative integer. So also, if it becomes a situation where that SAI, if it's up high enough over the COA, the need amount must be adjusted to 0. It cannot be a negative need amount. That is invalid. Okay. Also, as I mentioned before, could you go back a slide real quick? The enrollment status has been converted to show increment enrollment intensity. So please don't use the full-time, half-time, less than half-time. That is changed. We also have 2 new health programs that are added. The Behavioral Health Conditional Scholarship, which has a field in each of the various term tabs. This year, there will actually be 0 awards made in that program. So that will be reflected in the unit record manual. The Substance Use Disorder Professional Grant will be seeing reporting. So please be sure to include that if you have received those funds, because there will be an error edit for that if you have received it and we do not see that in your unit record. Okay, please, next slide. We have some changes in maximum award values. I'm not going to read them here. You can see them on the screen. They will also be available to you in the updated manual. Just please make note of that and know that we will be editing for those. We also have 3 in-depth unit record report training webinars scheduled. The first one is scheduled for Tuesday, July 29th, and the next is on August the 12th, also a Tuesday. Both of those are afternoon sessions at 1:30. The third and final unit record report training is scheduled for August the 14th. That is a Thursday at 9:30 in the morning. That one will be co-presented with State Board because it will include additional slides related to the CTC Link PeopleSoft program that they use. I'm trying to think here. Before I leave this page, I also want to emphasize, please, please, please use your test files in the portal training environment. That will help you catch and correct most of your errors before you actually place them in the live production site. Something I learned just recently, you can make corrections in that portal training file and then download that out of the initial in that navigation where it talks about uploading your file. There is a button there for downloading a copy of the unit record report. After you've made your corrections, you can download that and it can be used as your file in the live site. The only thing that does not download are your override comments. So you're going to want to make note of those elsewhere so that you can enter those if you've chosen to put in overrides instead of making corrections. Okay, next slide, please. All right, I think that concludes the formal presentation. As mentioned here, there is a short survey that will pop up after this presentation. please let us know how we did. And if you'd like to see anything more or different in the future, because your feedback is very important to us. I want to emphasize also that with our unit record trainings, we will go into much more depth on the unit record piece, but this provides you with a good overview of how that process works and where you might see things that cross over from a seesaw and will help you in formulating that file. Carly, would you like to take over?
All right. Thank you all. We appreciate you hanging in with us. Thanks for everyone who hung in and all your good questions. We have 3 last questions to kind of go through before we stop the webinar. But again, thank you so much for your work on both of these reports. It's a lot of work, and we are so grateful for you so that we can get accurate projections and accurate information to keep serving our students, and it's important work. So the first question, Anne, was just this person was referring to the number on the left compared to the unit record. I think that's the award amounts, and that comes directly from Seesaw, right?
Right. The Seesaw programs are those are from Seesaw.
Okay.
There are other programs, as I mentioned, the teacher programs, WAVE, WAS,
Mm-hmm.
uh, NGG. Those come out of those other program records in the portal.
Yeah, there you go. So it's not just Seesaw, it's also all the other portal records for those particular funds. So yeah. I have a student that just completed their name change. We received a federal flag. Will we receive a state flag as well? Name doesn't match SSN. And I thought we could take this both from an interim and URR perspective. From interim, if there was an issue with the application matching the student's name in Seesaw, there would be an edit there. And so basically what you would need to do is just make sure that it corrects the name that's on their financial aid application. So that's what Seesaw is going to look at. It's going to look at their name that's on that ICER transaction that you reported. And as long as that matches, you should be fine in our system. It's a little bit different than the federal system where there are flags and things like that. We work a little bit differently. But if you ever have a question and you have an edit about that, let us know. For the URR side, is it very similar?
Um, I think essentially we're looking at the SSN
Mm-hmm.
and WASFA ID. I've seen cases where sometimes there isn't a match with the name, but if it matches what's in Seesaw, there isn't an issue.
Yeah, great. The last one is, at private institution, does the residency issue come up as much? And I wanted to take a moment when Anne says admissions office, she's referring to your residency officer wherever they're placed for public schools. So for public schools, you're going to have a residency officer. And then for our private institutions, of course, that's run through the financial aid department. But you could see some conflicting records at a private institution between your office and the admissions office. But that's an important thing to note. So do you see this happen with the private institutions as much, Anne, for
I would
residency
say
profs?
not as much. I think we see that more actually perhaps in the CTCs because sometimes, even though it's all part of the same system, I think some of those records are kept private and then are shared later. And
Mm,
sometimes that information, may not trigger that correction very soon.
hmm.
I'm not as familiar with seeing that in the private institutions. I think it's more in the public side.
Okay, that's really helpful. That was an excellent question. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for hanging out longer with us today. We
Yes.
will have this information up on our website, and we just wish you all an excellent rest of your day and hope to see you at the next session, which is coming up here in the next half hour. If you're going to be at the WASPA session. If
Thank
not, we'll
you.
see you next week.
All righty. Bye bye.
Thanks, y'all.